I want to preface this video by stating that what I speak about going forward is not just applicable to the campaign of Claudia and Karina 2024, but it applies also to the other socialist and independent campaigns currently in the 2024 presidential race. I'm only going to focus on Claudia and Karina as it's a campaign that I relate to much more as a New Yorker from the South Bronx who also wants to see significant change in America and also in New York City. First and foremost, let's discuss what's going on behind this presidential race and why there are so many third-party campaigns coming up at this time. As we all know, and this is undeniable, Biden's presidency has not been the best. There have been significant economic problems throughout his presidency. We've been dealing with inflation, price gouging, gas prices going through the roof. He hasn't fulfilled many of his campaign promises that he made during the campaign trail back in 2020, such as forgiving mass student debt and codifying Roe v. Wade, which was a big one. And under his foreign and domestic policy, political unrest has been high. We've seen protests over Gaza. Many people have been frustrated over his dealings with Ukraine and Israel. And there are many other instances where domestically he has not done enough in terms of immigration and handling that and lowering the political unrest in regards to the issues at the border. And therefore, many have called for change in this presidency. Now, while some feel that a return to the Trump presidency would be good for the American people, others believe that new beginnings under the Harris administration could bring significant change. Due to the polarizing nature of both candidates, it's clear to see why there are also some people who simply just don't believe either would be good for the country. Arguably, these people who feel neither candidate will be good for the country, whether it's short-term or long-term, make up a large portion of the constituents that these third-party candidates are vying for. Whether these constituents be disgruntled liberals, frustrated libertarians, or in our instance, the people who we're going to be focusing on, unrepresented socialists who are, as all of them are, seeking a candidate who represents their needs. Now, this is where candidates such as Claudia and Karina come in to take the votes of these people who feel neither candidate represents their concerns, and they hope to gather enough voters to win delegates. While undeniably it's not dishonest work to run as a third-party candidate, there are very clear flaws in third-party campaigning, which hampers the chances of success for these candidates. Most notable of which is a simple lack of voter diversity and turnout. Though we would like to believe that we look past party lines as individuals in our political activities, the truth is that the average American rarely, if ever, votes across party lines. And for those who do, they make up a very small, yet ironically diverse, number of the population. According to studies by Pew Research, if we are to include those with an ideological lean who do still vote across party lines, this population is roughly about 35%. Now, this is a big issue for third-party candidates, as this is a very diverse 35% of the voter population that they must appeal to if they plan to make a significant impact in the presidential race. This 35% may be made up of libertarians, liberals, socialists, people of various political leanings and identities. And most important of all for these candidates, not all of that 35% is going to remain nonpartisan. A significant majority of that 35% will have an ideological lean. Therefore, you're not going to be competing for 35% of independent voters. No, you're going to be competing for a much smaller margin of those voters. If, let's say, you were a Democrat, you're competing for 16% of the voter population. If you're an independent Republican, you're competing for 15%. And this gets much worse when you account for the strong voter population margins which your competitors who are partisan will have over you. Partisan Democrats will have 34% of the voter population on their side, and partisan Republicans will have 32% of the voter population. Therefore, the chances of an independent candidate winning against a partisan candidate is absurdly slim. However, many third-party candidates simply opt to ignore this factor. Instead of aiming to win, many third-party candidates aim to use their campaign as a way to send a message to who they consider to be the political elites. And these candidates argue that your participation in their campaign will leave a significant impact on the power of this elite. Yet, historically, this has yet to be proven to be the case. As we've seen repeatedly through our time alone, third-party interests, especially the more radical or divisive ones, are often ignored by the partisan candidates, even if the third party may have resulted in their loss by siphoning votes in an election. This is most notably seen within the Democrat Party, as despite Hillary's dramatic loss in 2016 and Biden's slim, and I mean slim, win over Trump in 2020, we've seen the Democrats continue to ignore the third-party interests of some of their constituents that are independent in favor of maintaining the status quo with their competitors. Understanding this, what impact could a third-party candidate seek to make in such a politically tense presidential race such as our upcoming election? The chances of winning delegates are slim, and they're only going to be competing with their partisan counterparts, leaving both of you at a significant voter disadvantage to your ideological opponent. Worst of all, they're not going to leave any impact on their partisan counterparts' policies, nor their political ideology. Arguably, the only impact a third-party candidate will bring is to neuter the spread of their own ideology and waste the time and energy of their constituents. Now, I'm not saying Claudia and Karina are doing that. In fact, I'd argue I don't think so. I would hope not. But there are clear campaigns which are engineered to do so, such as Jill Stein's. Now, I don't believe that these third parties are doomed to fail, right? There's a lot of merit in libertarian and socialist policies that just don't get to be seen or understood or even considered by their larger partisan counterparts, right? So my opinion is that these third parties and these third party candidates such as Claudia and Karina should not be running for president. You're not going to make a significant impact or any impact at all by running for president. And you're especially not going to make any impact when most of these third-party candidates are relative unknowns. This especially is true for Claudia and Karina. You guys may be known in New York, but what about Texas, Nebraska, Pennsylvania? Most of you are not known in these states, and this is a big problem for many of these third-party candidates. The libertarians are not known in many of these states. The socialist candidates are not known in many of these states. There's no attempt to spread knowledge across the nation. And of course, campaigning is expensive and it's hard, but there needs to be an effort to actually campaign and compete. And this is made worse by the fact that there is nearly no cohesion within these third parties. Now, admittedly, the Libertarian Party is fairly good at organizing. I see that their party actually has a lot of cohesion. They consolidate ideology and power between a select number of candidates, and they focus on one candidate when they choose one, right? But the socialists in America don't have this cohesion, and this is terrible. In specific, I want to talk about the fact that ideologically, there is such a bare minimum attempt to consolidate our ideology into one core focus, right? I understand that there is a very big divide between Marxists and maybe Leninists and Stalinists and those who want revolution and those who want to do things democratically. But if you want to make significant change, you need to consolidate power. The libertarians understand this. The Democrats understand this. The Republicans have shown that they understand this very well because they have consolidated power within Trump. The socialists need to do the same if they hope to make any impact, presidential or otherwise. I don't believe running for president as a third-party candidate is a good idea. But if you're going to run as a candidate in general, you need to consolidate, you need to have a cohesive image, and you need to organize properly. And for the socialists and for Claudia and Karina, I do not see this. And if you want a clear example of the lack of cohesion between socialists, look no further than the political parties for them. You have the Party for Socialism and Liberation, and then you have the Democratic Socialists of America. Now, of course, between us socialists, we can tell the differences in ideology between these two parties. But for the average American who already does not have a good image of socialism, what is the difference between these two parties? There is virtually none. At the end of the day, my main point is this. For the majority of these third parties, we need to consolidate power, we need to organize, and we need to have a cohesive image if we want to make significant change in America. And specific for the socialists, please, you have to begin doing this. You need to choose if you're going to play the game of politics or you're not. This idea that we can get around by ideology and ideology alone does not work. At the end of the day, the people are not going to rise up just because they're struggling. They never do. The Russian Revolution didn't happen just because the people were struggling. They need a leader. They need cohesion. They need image. They need organization. Unless you organize, there will be no change in America. And all you're doing is wasting the time of your people. So, for the love of God, stop wasting their time. Start organizing. Thank you for watching my video. I want to say this is probably going to be a rare occasion where I talk about politics. I don't really like talking in this really disorganized manner. Overall, I just wanted to make this video because I've been growing frustrated with the third parties and socialists in specific in the way that we kind of talk about politics and we organize in America. I see a lot of you not wanting to really organize properly, and this is going to cost us a lot. So I really hope that this is definitely not going to reach Claudia and Karina. I already know that. It doesn't really matter. But for the younger groups of us, I hope that this reaches you, and that if you decide to run for politics or get involved politically, you keep this in mind. We need to organize, or else this is just going to keep happening again and again. So, yeah. See ya.